Hey there, Scott here from Chernobyl Studios, and today we have a sponsored video from Black Salt Audio. We are going to look at low control. So even though this is a sponsored video, all the opinions and what I think about this plugin are actually what I think. So let's just get that out of the way. So I have a pretty awesome doom metal song here. I'll play the whole thing through. There's a timestamp in the video if you want to skip ahead to where we start talking about the plugin and stuff like that. So let's just go ahead and have a good old listen what we got here. Let's talk about this plugin. All right, let's talk about this plugin. So what is low control? So the whole point of this plugin essentially is to be able to control the low end. But what does that actually mean? It means that in metal anyway, you are taking a certain band of frequencies and you're sort of clamping down on them so that you can still hear them, but it's not flubby and it's not so dynamic that at some points the mix will sound thin, but then at some points the mix would sound too thick and undefined, which means loose, which means it's not tight, which means it doesn't hit hard, all these things. Now, just to preface up close, if I were to do what this plugin is doing without using this plugin, at the very least, I would need to like duplicate the bass track. I would have to split the frequencies. So there's duplicating, adding EQ plugins, and then I would have to add a compressor, or I would have to do a multi-band compressor, and then I would have to do some kind of harmonic enhancer, and then I would have to bust all that stuff and then probably more EQ and then put it through some type of a limiter. So, can you do it without this plugin? You sure can, but there are other things to consider too. All these plugins will have attack and release times. If you want to make a change, that means you hopefully you have the ability to link channels in your software so you can just change it in one spot. Otherwise, you have to open all the plugins and change them all. Um, it's a time saver. This plugin is a time saver, and that's what I really like about this plugin. The other thing I really like personally is what you see is what you get. Okay, threshold, pull the threshold down, makeup gain, compress, solo, enhance frequency, one knob, out. Easy. Really easy to understand. One plugin, and I can basically replace 4 or 5 plugins that I would need to do. Plus, if I need to change something with the bass, it's in one spot. Okay. So this side over here is basically the controls area. This is where we are going to essentially do the filter cut, you know, like what we would do with the EQ if we were split basing or doing the split based method. And what we're doing basically is we have this filter slider down here where it says compress below whatever the frequency is. So whatever this frequency is going to be, that frequency and below is where the compression is happening. Really good rule of thumb, which is already here actually, 90 hertz. It's a good place to start for most bass. It really depends what you're tuned at with your bass guitar, but typically I'm anywhere from 90 to 100, and I actually like to put my bass frequencies in mono in my master train anyway, to about 120. But here we're having just on the bass guitar itself, and I'm focusing 90 and below. This is a great spot because even though I might have an EQ curve where I'm filtering off maybe like 50 and 60 and below to make room for the kick, compressing this area just keeps it from moving around too much, so you don't get any of the rumble. And rumble is bad because rumble is what eats up headspace. And if you have too much rumble, you can't really set a compressor in because you could have a rumble come in, then the compressor reacts, and then it's at this threshold now, and then it won't do anything else to any signal coming in because it's not as loud as that rumble peak was. So we can compress below 90 hertz. I really like that. Obviously, then you can increase the gain of the frequency being compressed. So you can tighten it and then turn it up. Great. We can solo the lows if we wanted to here. Now, the enhanced frequency and just the enhanced feature itself. This is basically to do with harmonics. And you can do 2 different things with it. So you can have a really low frequency enhance. You can choose a lower frequency and just like really pump up the low end thump of the bass in your song, or you can move the frequency up and create more harmonics that go higher up in the frequency registry so that your bass can be heard on smaller speakers. Like I said, this whole unit here is replacing easily 3 to 4 plugins that you would have to use to do this chain otherwise. I really love it, and really in my quest in the past year and a half or so to simplify my mixing workflow, I love plugins like this where I can just have one plugin and I have everything that I need to do with it. I don't need to tweak or do anything else with it. I'm really enjoying that. Of course, let's get more in depth to what it actually does with the bass. And it just so happens that I'm working with Eurobass, which is a classic Not a classic, but I mean it's a really great MIDI bass. And we're doing doom metal, which pretty much requires thick low end. Let's find a part here where we're doing like some quarter notes or something. Right here, great. Let's so bass is soloed. Let's press play. So this is just how it is. Now, the one thing I want you to notice is that how full and thumpy the bass sounds. Okay. The only EQ I have going on here is I'm actually taking out 250, whatever, doesn't matter. But this is all done when the mix was playing. So, okay, it's just EQ. So let's A B the actual low control, and you're going to hear a huge difference. So the Eurobass from Submission Audio is one of my favorite basses to use. Probably it would probably be like Loki, or it would probably be Loki Bass 2 from Solemn Tones, and then Eurobass. And I really love the way this thing sounds. It's very silky. However, low bass does everything that I want it to do. You heard a couple of different things. You heard the bass become beefy. You heard it become bigger. So, I mean, if you crank up the enhance, it gets pretty ridiculous. And really, this is a great way to find perhaps the fundamental note of the bass or the bass register that you would want to enhance, essentially, to make it more beefy. Now, I opted to stay more in the sub area here, not sub, but I opted to stay in the lower area here, because I want to have a lot of low end filling out the song, because I don't have a lot of double kick going on. There are no blast beats here. There's room to fill out a doom metal song. So I felt pretty cool with it being at 80, and I just basically walked the enhance back until it felt good at a good level where it didn't seem overly ridiculous. So there's the enhance. So now let's talk about the low part. So when I turn this on, you can just hear the low end tightening right up. Okay. And that's not to say that the Euro bass is a bad bass. That's actually one of the reasons why I decided to use this, because I really wanted to see we could take a really good product from Submission Audio and already put the low control from Black Salt Audio on here and see, like, does it matter? What doesn't do anything? The answer is obviously yes. We're adding a bunch of extra thickness to the low end of this bass guitar, and it's just filling out the bottom end of the song. And you notice just very slight, but even the little bit of wobbliness and the looseness of the bass is getting tightened up and cleaned up. And that means a lot, especially if you're doing metal and the BPMs are really fast. It's really going to help you. But the major magic that I really like about this plugin, other than and combining a bunch of different plugins into one, is that I have the enhance and then the DB. So I could actually increase gain or decrease gain here if I need to. And last but not least, we can solo what we're doing to the low end frequencies. So when I had this low solo there, you could hear, yeah, it gets lower in volume, but that's what we got the makeup gain for. But it becomes tighter and less flubby and less loose. And that is a huge thing that you need to avoid when you're dealing with metal mixes. Loose low end. Loose low end is very, very bad. We have to do everything we can possible to basically control it. And that's why I really like this plugin, because, like previously I had used basically the L1 method that Joel Wanasek has kind of made famous, where you just pin L1 and then mix it in. Whatever it sounds like solo, it doesn't matter, only matters in the mix. And I still would run into the problems where I didn't quite like that, because if you had a lot of low notes, of course you would pin L1 and then the bass sounds really distorted and weird. And then I was like, well, what if I just automate L1 so I'm always doing like 6 dB reduction no matter what notes are hitting on the bass? Well, I don't know if you've ever tried automating before. Automating takes a while, and you just can't do that. That's a lot of time. And time is really what I'm trying to save these days. And that's why I'm pretty happy with low control. It has a bunch of functionality in it that replaces me needing to duplicate the bass track, add an EQ, do a filter to split the EQ frequencies, add a compressor or a multi-band compressor or our bass, add max bass for harmonic enhancement, put it all into a bus, and then EQ it again, and then throw it through L1. I can just right here with this plugin, done. No knobs, no attack release, don't have to worry about anything. Just threshold, uh, makeup gain, what frequency do I want to compress from, enhance it, and done. So I'm pretty happy with the plugin, actually. I'm quite happy with it. A couple things that I can say is like the interface. I don't believe it's resizable. Nope, that's the manual, which is good, by the way. So click this for the manual. Always good stuff. I'm on a 1440p monitor. This font is kind of small, and it's black on a gray, greenish black background here. If you have like a 4K monitor, this plugin is probably going to be a pain in the ass to try to read. I would maybe in a future update would basically just make I mean, when it reacts and it's white when you're reacting on it, that's cool. But maybe just make it an orange when you're reacting on it, so that this is always visible. I guess it's really not an issue anymore because I'm used to it now. Like, this is obviously threshold, this is my gain reduction. But even so, these numbers are quite small. Once again, I know you're not supposed to mix by numbers and stuff like that, but it's just it could be inhibitive for someone who maybe has trouble looking at a screen or needs really strong glasses and reading small font on a dark background. It could be difficult for you. Okay, so the plugin's really quite simple. There's really nothing else to talk about. Let's just go a couple more examples. Maybe let's do bass and drums. And just look at the bass and drums together. It's so obvious now when you take low control off, the low end just literally falls out the ass. It's it's quite interesting, actually. So I'll turn low control off, and then I'll engage it, and you'll just hear the difference yourself. Go to a fast part. I mean, this doesn't sound bad, right? However, there's so much more dimension added to the mix, right? Like, you can obviously do this with a number of plugins stacked on together, like I've already mentioned in the video, but why when there's just the one plugin you can do it? It's a huge time saver. Let's put the guitars in. Rhythm guitars. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it works. The plugin is simple and it works, and there's really nothing else that I could really talk about. However, let's go to the store page really quick. There is one thing that I would like to say finally is that the plugin is $100. Now, I don't know how I feel about that, if I'm being honest, but when I think about it, when I think about how much time I'm able to save not having to duplicate the track, not having to put EQ on, and then dialing a multi-band compressor, and then dialing a separate harmonic enhancer, and then put that all into a bus. And because that's what, 3 plugins, you would at the very least need a multi-band, a good one, a good enhancer, and a good EQ. Or maybe not even, or R bass or something like that. So you're looking at 3 plugins that you would have to buy anyway, which would probably be over $100 as it is. But Here's the thing. I would definitely recommend this plugin if there's a couple things. One, you don't want to just worry about what ratio you're using at the attack and release and worry about fiddling with all these different compression settings. Two, you just want to have a one simple plugin solution where you can set it and literally forget about it. And three, you just want to save time. Those are all three things for me, which would make me consider the plugin worth it. You might be in a different position, however, like this is my work. I have to get mixes done pretty quickly. And so this is totally worth it for me. It's not a big issue. You might be in a different boat. So that's probably the only knack I could give against the plugin, aside from the small graphical nitpicks that I gave about it, is that it's $100, but the plugin works. No glitches, no crashes, no problems. It's very easy to use, very intuitive, and it replaces plugins that I would normally have to use in my workflow anyway, and now I don't need to use them and don't have to worry about and juggle a whole bunch of different plugins in my session. So like I say, $100 is totally worth it for me. It might not be for you. You'll just have to see for yourself. So I would like to see Black Salt Audio sort of make tweaks to the interface, or at the very least make it resizable, because even at 1440p, that plugin's already starting to look pretty small. On 1080, I'm sure it looks fine, actually, because it's just a little bit more magnified. But on bigger displays and for like in like 4K, that's probably not the best user experience right there. The colors can be a bit dark, but hey, as far as functionality is concerned, it works. I have no complaints, and I would not feel bad recommending the plugin, so that's what I'll do. If you want to get a better bass sound out of in your mixes, you don't want to mess with all these array of different plugins that you just generally need to do in metal, low control might be your answer. If you'd like to pick up the plugin, link is down below in the description, so go ahead and click it. That'll do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the plugin. Did you get the plugin? Are you thinking about getting the plugin? What did you think about it? Let me know. It would be cool to read your thoughts, all right? See you guys in the next video. Have a good one.